The theater was packed. Bright lights covered the giant stage, making it glow like a dream. Hundreds of people filled the red velvet seats, whispering, laughing, waiting for the next performer. It was the city's biggest talent show. When everyone watched on TV, for most contestants, this stage was a chance to change their life. For others, it was a place where dreams came to die. When the announcer called the next name, the room went oddly quiet. Next up, Maya Williams. From behind the stage curtain, a young black girl stepped out slowly. She couldn't have been more than 17. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her clothes weren't stylish, just a plain white shirt and old jeans. She looked nothing like the other performers, who wore sparkly dresses and stage makeup. The crowd tilted their heads. Some people started to murmur, "Who is she?" Someone whispered. "She doesn't look like a singer," another said. A group of teenagers sitting in the back started to snicker. "She's probably here as a joke," one boy muttered, loud, enough for others to hear. Laughter spread through a few rows. Maya felt it. Every giggle, every whisper, every eye staring at her like she didn't belong there. Her hands trembled as she gripped the microphone. The lights felt like they were burning her face. She tried to smile, but it came out shaky. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She glanced at the judges. 3 of them sat behind a long desk, looking at her with raised eyebrows. One judge leaned back in his chair and sighed, as if he already knew this would be a waste of time. Another whispered something to the judge beside her, making both of them smirk. The host, standing off to the side, gave Maya a tiny nod, the kind that said, "Just start. It'll be over soon." Maya swallowed hard. She had dreamed of this stage. For years, she had practiced in her bedroom, singing to the walls, imagining the cheers of a crowd. But now, all she could hear was the sound of muffled laughs and the rustle of people getting ready to see her fail. A man in the front row leaned toward his wife and whispered, "This one's not going to last 30 seconds. Softly. Teenagers in the back row were now holding up their phones, ready to record, not because they thought she'd be amazing, because they thought she'd be funny to post online. And then, as Maya adjusted the microphone, a loud cough echoed from the balcony. Someone muttered, "This is going to be embarrassing." The audience chuckled again. The sound felt like knives to her ears. Maya's stomach twisted. Her throat felt dry. She wanted to run, to just drop the microphone and walk off stage. For a split second, she thought about it. She pictured herself slipping through the curtains, grabbing her bag, disappearing into the night where no one could laugh at her. But then she remembered something, her father's voice from last night. They had sat in their tiny kitchen, a single light flickering above them. Her father had placed a rough, calloused hand on hers and said, "People will laugh. People will doubt you. But the moment you open your mouth, Maya, make sure they never laugh again." Those words echoed in her mind as she looked out at the sea of strangers. The whispers didn't stop, but she tried to block them out. She took one shaky breath. The music was about to start, but before it did, something strange happened. From the side of the stage, just beyond the curtain, she noticed a shadow, a man in a cap, standing quietly. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she knew who it was, her father. He had come, even though he told her he couldn't leave work. He stood there, still and calm, watching her. Their eyes met for a brief second. He didn't smile, he didn't wave, he just mouthed one word: "Breathe." The music began to play softly, but the crowd wasn't paying attention yet. Someone in the middle rows whispered, "She's gonna mess up." Another person chuckled, "Watch, she won't even hit the first note." Maya's grip on the microphone tightened. Her knees felt weak, but she stood tall. The judges leaned forward slightly, ready to press their buzzers if she made one wrong move. She opened her mouth, and nothing came out. For a second, the whole room erupted into low laughter. One man in the back yelled, "Go home!" Even one of the judges shook his head in disappointment, already reaching for his buzzer. Maya felt her face burn with shame. Her throat was locked. Her heart was racing. She wanted to cry, but then she saw her father again, still standing there. He didn't move, but his eyes told her everything. Don't quit. Not now. She closed her eyes, blocking out the lights, the laughter, the faces. She took the deepest breath she had ever taken, and then she prepared to sing her first word. The crowd's whispers grew louder. Faint chuckles from the audience felt like thunder in Maya's ears. She stood in the center of the massive stage, the microphone cold and heavy in her trembling hands. The bright spotlights blinded her. But even through the glare, she could see the three judges sitting like statues in front of her. Their faces told her everything. Not one of them looked impressed. Not one of them looked curious. They weren't waiting to be amazed. They were waiting for her to fail. The judge on the left, a middle-aged woman with sharp red lipstick, tapped her pen on the table. She tilted her head and looked at Maya as if she were something small, a bug she wasn't sure was worth stepping on. She leaned toward the man sitting next to her and whispered something. Her words were too low for Maya to hear, but her smirk afterward was loud enough. The man in the middle, clearly the lead judge, leaned back in his chair, wore a navy blue suit and a gold watch that gleamed under the lights. His fingers tapped the desk impatiently. Maya glanced at him. He didn't even bother to smile. Instead, he sighed and muttered under his breath, "Another one of these auditions." The third judge, a younger man with perfectly styled hair, was already reaching toward the big red buzzer in front of him. His hand hovered just above it, like he was eager to press it before Maya even started singing. He didn't try to hide his grin. It was the grin of someone who had already decided the ending to her story. In the audience, the whispers turned into quiet jokes. "She looks so nervous," someone snickered. "Bet she won't last 10 seconds, another voice muttered. A man in the back row said, just loud enough for others to hear, "Let's see how fast they kick her off stage." The people around him laughed softly, trying not to get caught on camera. Maya's knees felt weak. The stage was so big, but somehow she felt like it was closing in on her. She gripped the microphone tighter, as if holding on to it could stop her from falling apart. The music technician raised a hand from the corner of the stage, signaling he was about to start the track. The soft instrumental intro would begin any moment. Maya's lips trembled, chest tightened. The red-lipped judge leaned into her microphone and said with a sweet but sharp voice, "Take your time, dear. Don't be scared. This is your moment, before it's gone." Her words dripped with fake kindness, and the audience caught the sarcasm. A few people laughed under their breath. The younger male judge chuckled quietly and looked toward the cameras. It was as if he was already planning how the clip of Maya's failure would go viral later. A funny fail moment for the talent show's highlight reel. The middle judge finally spoke, his voice deep and dismissive. "Whenever you're ready, we don't have all night." His eyes were cold, his expression flat. Maya swallowed hard. Her throat felt like it was closing. She wanted to speak, to say, "I can do this," but no words came. Her eyes darted toward the edge of the curtain on the right side of the stage. Her father was still there, standing perfectly still, his cap shadowing most of his face. He didn't smile or move, but when Maya's eyes met his, he lifted his hand slowly and made a small motion, like he was pressing his palm down in the air. It was his way of telling her, "Calm. Breathe. You're okay." Maya felt a single tear threaten to fall, but she blinked it back. She could not cry here, not in front of the judges. Not in front of these strangers who wanted her to break. The music finally began. Soft piano played the intro of the song she had practiced for weeks. The crowd went silent for a brief moment, waiting for her first word. Even the judges, though still unimpressed, leaned forward slightly to hear. Maya took a deep breath. She opened her mouth and nothing. Not a single note came out. The room erupted in low laughter again. Someone in the audience clapped sarcastically. One of the teenagers in the back whispered loudly, "This is gold," while recording on his phone. The younger judge grinned wide and slapped the red buzzer. The loud, harsh sound filled the theater, echoing like a warning bell. Big red X lit up above the stage. The middle judge didn't press his buzzer yet. Instead, he leaned toward his microphone and said in a deep, cold voice, "You can quit now if you want, sweetheart. No shame in walking away before this gets worse." The red-lipped judge chuckled softly, hiding it behind her hand. She whispered again to the man in the middle, "This one's definitely not making it to the chorus." Maya's fingers tightened so hard around the microphone that her knuckles turned white. Her heart was beating so fast it felt like it might burst. For a moment she considered walking away. She thought, but then, through the noise and the humiliation, she heard something faint. A single voice. Not from the crowd, not from the judges. From the side of the stage. It was her father. His deep, steady tone cut through the chaos like a blade. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't panicking. He just said 2 words softly, but firmly enough that only Maya could hear them sing, "Baby." Maya closed her eyes. She shut out the laughter. She blocked out the judge's smirks and the harsh red light above her. She took one deep breath, the way her father taught her every night when she practiced. And this time, she'll let her first. Note escape. The first note was out. Soft, shaky, but real. Maya's lips parted again, trying to follow the music. Her voice was almost a whisper at first, fragile like a thread in the wind. The piano notes wrapped around her, but the crowd was still restless. Few people were giggling, waiting for her to crack again. The younger judge had his finger hovering over his buzzer, ready to end it if she faltered. Maya's hands trembled so much that the microphone wobbled. She tried to steady it, but her grip felt weak. Her palms were slick with sweat. The bright lights made her skin glisten, and she felt as if everyone in the theater could see her fear. She blinked hard. Her chest rose and fell fast, almost too fast to catch her breath. Every muscle in her arms screamed at her to drop the microphone and run, and then she heard it again, that same faint grounding voice from the edge of the stage. Her father's voice. This time it was just one word. Steady. She looked down for a second, away from the blinding lights and mocking stares. She watched her trembling fingers gripping the metal handle. The sight made her pause. She took a deep, slow breath, loosened her hold, and re-gripped the microphone more firmly. It stopped shaking. The piano carried on. The song's intro was ending. The true verse, the part where her voice had to shine, was coming. The crowd was still skeptical. A man in the balcony leaned over the railing and whispered, "She's going to choke when the high note hits." The teenagers in the back row were whispering, laughing softly, recording every second. They wanted a viral video of her humiliation, not her success. Maya's heart pounded, but her father's voice kept echoing in her mind. She remembered him sitting with her in their small living room late at night, teaching her how to control her nerves. He used to say, "Your hands tell the story first. If they're steady, your voice will follow." She exhaled slowly, and as the verse began, Maya lifted her chin slightly. Her voice finally found its place. The note came out stronger than before. Not perfect, but warm and smooth enough to catch a few people off guard. The red-lipped judge raised her brows a little, but kept her smirk. The lead judge, sitting in the middle, tilted his head ever so slightly. It was the first time he didn't look completely bored. The younger male judge, however, rolled his eyes and muttered, "She's holding on, but not for long." The audience wasn't clapping yet. Most were waiting for her to make a mistake, to break. But a few people in the front rows stopped whispering. A couple leaned forward, curious now, wondering if maybe, just maybe, they were about to witness something different. The lights dimmed slightly as the verse built to the chorus. Maya's hands were steadier now, but her knees still shook under the long skirt she wore. She focused only on the sound of her breath, the rhythm of the music, and the memory of her father's calm voice. She knew the hardest part was coming. The chorus had a high note, the kind of note that could make or break a singer. If she hit it wrong, the audience would laugh even louder than before. If she hit it right, the room might actually start to believe in her. The music swelled. The lead judge leaned forward now, resting his elbows on the desk, his sharp eyes locked on her. The red-lipped judge stopped smirking. The younger judge looked almost annoyed, as if her steady improvement was ruining the quick fail he wanted to see. Maya closed her eyes for half a second. She pictured her father, standing just beyond the curtain, hands crossed calmly over. his chest. She imagined the nights she had stood barefoot in their living room, belting out this same song while he clapped softly to keep her on tempo. She remembered his words, the ones he repeated every single time she doubted herself. You don't sing to them, Maya. You sing for yourself. Let the world listen if they want, but don't let them shake your voice. Her fingers squeezed the microphone one last time for courage. The moment had come. The music rose higher. Ah! The crowd went silent, sensing the big note ahead, and then she sang. Her voice didn't just rise, it soared. The high note was crystal clear, cutting through. The air like glass. Not a crack. Not a tremble. It was so pure that the entire room froze. The red-lipped judge's pen stopped tapping. The lead judge's mouth opened slightly, his eyebrows lifting in surprise. The younger male judge's hand slid away from the buzzer completely, and in the end, the whispers stopped. Every person sat still, watching this shy girl who had walked on stage like a nervous shadow, now filling the theater with a voice that didn't sound nervous at all. For the first time that night, Maya's hands didn't tremble. They were steady, gripping the microphone like it was a part of her. Her voice carried her note after note, until the last word of the chorus echoed through the silent theater, and when she opened her eyes, she saw something she had never expected. The same people who had been laughing at her were leaning forward in silence. The same judges who had looked ready to send her home were watching her like they were afraid to blink and miss something. And behind the curtain, her father nodded once. Not smiling, not clapping, just nodding. Like he already knew this was the moment everyone would finally hear what he had known all along. The theater was silent. Every eye in the room was on Maya. The high note she had just hit still echoed in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. Even the people who had been laughing earlier were quiet now, unsure if they had just imagined what they heard. But the moment of awe didn't last. As the piano faded into the next verse, Maya's chest tightened again. Her throat felt dry. Her hands, which had finally steadied during the chorus, began to tremble once more. She had gotten through the hardest part, or so she thought. Now came the long verse, soft, emotional, and dangerous. This was the part of the song where most singers slipped, their voices cracking under the weight of nerves. And the crowd, sensing her hesitation, was ready to pounce. From the back row, a low voice muttered, "She's gonna lose it now." Someone else snorted softly, "Bet she can't hold the quiet notes." The laughter was faint, but it was there waiting for her to falter again so they could feel right about doubting her. The younger male judge, still leaning back in his seat, smiled faintly as he whispered to the red-lipped judge beside him. She got lucky on that high note, but the soft parts, that's where they choke. The woman smirked, pen tapping on her clipboard. The lead judge, though silent, studied Maya like a hawk, his hands folded neatly on the table. Maya lifted the microphone closer to her lips. She could feel the cool metal against her trembling fingers. Her breath came fast, shallow. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like the entire audience could hear it. The piano played on, waiting for her voice. She opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Her throat locked up completely, like a door slammed shut. A ripple of laughter broke through the silence. Not loud, but sharp. One of the teenagers in the back row whispered loudly, "Here we go." Another clicked his phone camera on, whispering, "This is gonna blow up online." Maya's vision blurred as tears welled in her eyes. Her body screamed for her to drop the microphone and run. Every part of her wanted to disappear. But then, like a thread of sound pulling her back, she heard a single noise. It's not from the audience, not from the judges, from the shadows near the curtain. Her father's voice, low, steady, like the hum of a calm ocean. "Breathe." Maya blinked, the tears stopping just before they could spill. She closed her eyes, shutting out the lights, the whispers, the stares. She took one deep, slow breath, so deep she could almost feel her father's hand on her back like he used to do when she practiced. She let the breath out, feeling her body loosen. The laughter in the crowd softened. The people in the front. Rose leaned forward, curious now. Would she crack again? Would she quit? The music was still waiting. The verse was almost over. If she didn't sing now, the moment would be gone forever. Maya opened her eyes, and this time she sang. The note came out soft, trembling slightly, but it was there. Her voice carried through. The speakers, fragile but beautiful, like glass, ready to break, but still shining. The laughter stopped. The people in the back who had been recording lowered their phones a little. Suddenly unsure if this was going to be the disaster they were hoping for, the judges leaned in. The younger one still had his finger resting near the buzzer, but he wasn't smiling anymore. The red-lipped judge's pen stopped tapping. The lead judge tilted his head, narrowing his eyes as he studied Maya's every move. She sang the line. Each word steadier than the last. Her fingers stopped shaking. Her chest stopped heaving. By the time she the part where her voice had to soar, to prove that the first chorus wasn't a fluke. The audience felt it, the tension building like a storm. Some were on the edge of their seats, waiting to see if she could do it again. Maya looked to the side of the stage one more time. Her father stood exactly where he had been. Still, silent, calm. He didn't smile or clap. He simply gave her a slow nod. It was the only sign she needed. The music swelled. The lights dimmed, the spotlight focusing entirely on her. Every sound in the room faded, except the rising notes of the piano. Her chest rose as she filled her lungs with air, and then, as the second chorus hit, she let her voice fly. The note wasn't just strong this time, it was bigger, richer, filled with every ounce of fear, pain, and hope she had been holding inside. The crowd gasped. The teenagers in the back lowered their phones completely, jaws dropping. The judges sat perfectly still, their eyes locked on her. The theater, which had been filled with whispers and laughter minutes ago, was now completely silent except for her voice. Every single person was listening, and Maya, gripping the microphone with steady hands, realized something. She wasn't just singing anymore. She was winning them over, note by note. The second chorus faded into silence. The theater held its breath. Maya's voice had soared, and for the first time since she stepped on stage, no one was laughing. But as the music softened for the bridge, the quiet, intimate part of the song, her chest tightened again. The fear started to crawl back in. She felt the weight of the crowd pressing against her. Hundreds of eyes, hundreds of unspoken doubts. She could almost hear the voices in their heads. She'll break here. She can't keep it up. The teenagers in the back, who had lowered their phones during her last note, slowly raised them again. One whispered, "The bridge will kill her. Watch. This is where she messes up." The audience was silent. But it wasn't the silence of respect. It was the silence of waiting for her to fail. The judges watched closely. The red-lipped woman leaned forward, pen resting on her lips. The younger male judge crossed his arms, smirking faintly, as if he could already see her cracking. The lead judge, silent as ever, rested his chin on his hand, his sharp eyes following her every movement. Maya's grip on the microphone slipped slightly. Her palms were wet again. Her throat felt dry. Her knees wobbled beneath her hidden by the spotlight, but strong enough for her to feel the tremor. The piano played softly, urging her to sing the next quiet line. But her breath was uneven. Her lips parted and nothing came out. A low ripple of laughter traveled through the crowd. Someone in the middle rows whispered, "There it is." Another voice muttered, "I knew it was too good to last." Maya's heart pounded. Her ears rang.
Oh.
She could feel the heat of humiliation crawling up her neck. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run. But then she heard something. It wasn't the music. It wasn't the laughter. It was a voice. Low, calm, steady. It came from the shadows near the curtain at the side of the stage. Her father, he hadn't moved from the moment she walked out. He stood in the dark, arms folded across his chest, cap low over his brow. But now his voice reached her like a lifeline. 2 words, soft, strong. "Keep going." Maya closed her eyes. Let the sound of her father's voice sink in. pushing out the whispers, the laughter, the eyes waiting for her to break. She took one long, deep breath, the kind he had taught her to take when her fear tried to strangle her voice. And then, softly, she began to sing again. The note was quiet but true. It floated out over the audience like a fragile ribbon of sound. Her voice trembled at first, but it didn't break. Each word grew steadier, stronger. The red-lipped judge lowered her pen. The younger male judge's smirk faded just slightly. Even the lead judge, who had hardly moved all night, leaned forward a little. The crowd went silent again. Not the silence of mockery this time. Silence of people who didn't want to miss a single note. As Maya continued the bridge, her father's voice echoed in her mind, the same words he used to tell her every night when they practiced. The bridge is yours. Maya, whisper it, own it, then rise. Her breathing slowed. Her fingers steadied. The fear didn't vanish, but it no longer controlled her. By the time she reached the final line of the bridge, her voice was no longer trembling at all. The music swelled again, building toward the final chorus, the moment where every emotion, every ounce of power in her voice would need to explode. The audience could feel it coming. People shifted in their seats, leaning forward, eyes fixed on her. The teenagers in the back, still holding their phones, weren't smirking anymore. Their faces were tense, like even they didn't want to blink. The whispers were gone. The only sound was the soft hum of the piano. Maya's breath, steady now, filling her lungs for what was to come. She looked toward the curtain one last time. Her father hadn't moved. He didn't clap. He didn't shout. He simply nodded once, slow and calm, like he had done when she was 10 years old, singing her first song in their kitchen. Maya gripped the microphone tight. The lights above the stage dimmed even more, leaving her in a single spotlight. The final chorus was here. The moment that would decide whether the audience would cheer or return to their laughter. She closed her eyes, drew in the deepest breath she had taken all night, and when the chorus hit, she opened her mouth and unleashed her voice. It wasn't just singing anymore. It was a storm, powerful, endless. Every note slammed into the theater like a wave, washing away every smirk, every whisper, every doubt. The crowd froze. The judges sat motionless. The room filled with laughter minutes ago was now drowning. In her voice, a voice no one could laugh at anymore, the final chorus had begun. And Maya's voice was no longer soft, no longer shaking. It was rising, filling the air like it belonged there. Her eyes were closed. Her chest moved steadily. With every breath, the same girl who had nearly walked off the stage minutes ago was now gripping the microphone like it was her anchor. The audience, once restless and whispering, sat frozen in their seats. Every smirk had vanished. The teenagers in the back lowered their phones slowly, not wanting to distract from the sound. That was pulling them in, and for the first time all night, the judges weren't thinking about the buzzer. The red-lipped woman leaned forward, elbows on the table, her sharp expression softening slightly. The younger male judge, who had been smirking through most of her performance, sat with his arms uncrossed, his eyes locked on her, the lead judge, who had barely reacted to anyone all night, now tilted his head and whispered under his breath, "Unbelievable." But Maya didn't see any of that. She didn't care about the judges or the audience. In her mind, there was only one person. The man standing silently in the shadows by the curtain. Her father. Still calm, still quiet, still watching her like he had from the moment she walked on stage. She could almost hear his voice, even though he didn't speak this time. "This is it, Maya. Don't hold back. Show them who you are." The chorus built higher. Her voice carried every word like a wave crashing through the theater. Each note felt heavier, stronger, and more certain than the last. She wasn't just singing anymore, she was fighting. Fighting against every laugh, every whisper, every look of doubt she had felt since she stepped on stage. The light shifted. The spotlight grew brighter, isolating her from everything else. The piano faded slightly, letting her voice dominate. The space, in the crowd, People were starting to sit up straighter. Some even glanced at one another, their eyes wide as if silently asking, "Where did this come from?" The whispers had completely vanished. No one dared to speak now. Even the teenagers in the back had stopped recording. Their phones were lowered. One of them, who had laughed the loudest before, muttered quietly, "She's amazing." Maya's hands, which had trembled so badly at the start, were now steady as stone. Her shoulders relaxed. Her fear, the same fear that had nearly stolen her voice twice, was gone. Every ounce of her was focused on one thing: the music. The chorus reached its peak, the highest, most powerful note of the entire song. This was the moment. If she hit it, she wouldn't just impress them, she would own the stage. If she missed it, all the whispers, all the laughter, would come rushing back. She glanced to the side just for a second. Her father hadn't moved, but this time he did something different. He lifted his chin ever so slightly, as if telling her, "Go on, take it higher. Show them all." Maya filled her lungs with air, every muscle in her body tensing with determination. The music slowed slightly, giving her room. The spotlight dimmed just enough to cast a shadow behind her, and then she hit the note. It wasn't just powerful, it was flawless. It rang out over the audience, over the judges, over the cameras, and even beyond the walls of the theater. The reaction was instant. The crowd gasped.
Ow.
Someone in the middle rows put a hand over their mouth. The red-lipped judge, for the first time, smiled, not a mocking smile, but a real one. The younger male judge leaned back in his chair, whispering, "I did not see this coming." Even the lead judge, who rarely showed emotion, muttered softly, "She's the one." But Maya didn't hear any of it. Her voice, carrying that final soaring note, drowned everything out. She wasn't singing for them anymore. She was singing for herself. For her father. For every time someone told her she wasn't good enough, the music slowed as the song neared its end. Her voice, which had filled the entire hall seconds ago, softened again, carrying the last few lines with a tenderness that made the silence in the room feel heavy. When the final word left her lips, the music faded completely, and for a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no clapping, just a still, almost sacred silence. Then, the theater erupted. Cheers, applause. People leaped from their seats, clapping and shouting her name. The same crowd that had whispered and mocked her now stood in awe, their voices rising louder than the laughter had ever been. The teenagers in the back, phones down, hands clapping, their faces a mix of shock and respect. The judges stood too. The red-lipped woman nodded, smiling. Wide now. The younger male judge clapped, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe it. And the lead judge, who had hardly moved the entire night, stood slowly, clapping once before saying that. It's extraordinary. But Maya's eyes weren't on the judges. They weren't on the cheering crowd. They were on the curtain. On her father, he still didn't clap, still didn't shout. He just gave her that same small, calm nod he had given her since the beginning. The kind of nod that said, "I knew you had this in you all along." And in that moment, as tears welled in her eyes, Maya realized something. The girl who walked on stage, terrified and shaking, was gone. The crowd, the judges, even she herself, none of them would ever see her as a joke again. The applause was deafening. The theater, which had been filled with whispers and laughter minutes ago, now thundered with cheers. People were on their feet, clapping so hard their hands stung. Some whistled, some shouted her name, and others just stared, unable to believe what they had witnessed. But amid the noise, Maya stood still. The microphone was still in her hands, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. She didn't smile, not yet. It was as if she didn't trust what she was hearing, like at any second, the cheers could turn back into laughter. The judges were still standing. The red-lipped woman had her hands clasped together, smiling like she'd just watched something magical. The younger male judge shook his head in disbelief, muttering to himself, "Where did that even come from?" And the lead judge, calm but impressed, leaned into his microphone and said, in a low, steady tone, "Ladies and gentlemen, that is why we have these auditions." The crowd erupted again at his words, cheering louder, but Maya barely heard them. Her eyes drifted toward the curtain at the side of the stage, the place where her father still stood in the shadows. He hadn't moved, hadn't clapped, hadn't cheered. He simply stood there, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her, his cap casting a shadow over his face. Their eyes met for just a second, and then, for the first time all night, he nodded twice a little deeper than before. It wasn't a cheer, wasn't even a smile, but Maya understood what it meant. It was his way of saying, "You did it. You proved them all wrong," she finally exhaled, her shoulders dropping as the weight she had been carrying for the entire performance slid away.
Ow.
Her trembling hands were gone. Her fear was gone. For the first time since she stepped on the stage, she allowed herself to breathe. The host stepped forward, walking across the stage with a wide smile. He took the microphone gently from her hands and said loudly, "Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up one more time for Maya Williams?" The crowd obeyed instantly, cheering louder. Some people were even chanting her name. The sound echoed off the walls of the theater, rattling through her chest like a heartbeat. But even as she stood there, soaking in the applause, something felt strange, different. The noise was deafening, yet somewhere in the back of the theater, it felt quiet, like a shadow creeping over the joy. Maya's eyes flicked past the blinding lights, toward the far end of the audience. There, in the very back row, someone was standing, not clapping, not cheering, standing. The figure was tall, wearing a dark coat and hat. Their face was hidden, but their posture was rigid still. While everyone else roared with applause, this person remained motionless, staring directly at Maya. Her breath hitched. Her chest tightened again, but not from stage fright this time. Something about that still figure in the back made her uneasy, even as the cheers grew louder around her. She looked toward the side of the stage, toward her father. He was still there, calm as ever, but this time his head tilted slightly, toward the back row as if he saw the figure too. His jaw tightened, and for the first time all night his arms uncrossed. The host continued speaking, smiling brightly at the audience, but Maya barely heard him. She couldn't stop looking at that unmoving figure in the back. It was as if the theater, despite the noise, had split into two worlds. The bright, loud celebration, and the silent, watching shadow, and for reasons she couldn't explain, a shiver ran down her spine. Something told her the night wasn't over yet. The crowd was still cheering. Maya could feel the vibrations of their applause in her chest, but her focus wasn't on them anymore. Her eyes were fixed on the back of the theater, on that lone figure standing in the shadows. Everyone else was on their feet, clapping and shouting. But that person, still silent, watching the figure didn't move, didn't join in the celebration. It was as if the cheers, the lights, the excitement meant nothing. They were there for one reason, to watch her. Maya's breath grew shallow. Her heart, which had just begun to calm after her performance, started pounding again, her hands steady. During the song, tightened into fists at her sides. She couldn't make out their face. The lights from the stage cast the back row into darkness, making the tall figure look more like a shadow than a person. But she knew one thing. Their eyes were on her, locked, unblinking. She glanced toward the side of the stage, toward her father. For the first time all night, he had moved. His arms were no longer crossed. His shoulders were squared, his body tense, and his head wasn't facing her anymore. It was facing the same shadow in the back row. The host, oblivious to the tension, was still speaking into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible performance. I think we all know we just witnessed something truly special." The crowd roared in agreement, but Maya barely heard any of it. Her eyes stayed on that unmoving figure, and the longer she looked, the colder she felt. It was as though the air around her had shifted, the excitement of the theater replaced. By a creeping unease, the figure tilted their head slightly. Not much. Just enough to make Maya realize they were definitely looking only at her. Not the judges, not the crowd. Her father's gaze stayed locked on the shadow. and then slowly he took a single step forward from behind the curtain. It was subtle, but to Maya, it felt deliberate, protective. The red-lipped judge still seated at the table noticed Maya's distracted stare. She leaned into her microphone and asked, "Maya, are you all right?" Maya didn't answer right away. She couldn't pull her eyes from the figure. The host turned toward her, smiling, trying to keep the energy alive for the cameras. "Big moment for you, Maya. Anything you want to say to the audience?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her throat felt tight, not from nerves this time, but from something else, something heavier. In the back row, the figure finally moved, not toward the exit, not toward the stage. Just one slow step forward into the faint glow of a wall light. The theater was too loud for anyone else to notice, but Maya saw it clearly. A gloved hand, coat buttoned high, and a faint glint of something metallic at their waist, hidden beneath the coat, but catching just enough light to gleam. Her father saw it too. His jaw tightened. He stepped another pace closer to the edge of the curtain, his eyes sharp now, locked on the stranger. The cheers of the audience were starting to fade, not because they noticed the shadowed figure, but because they sensed something different. About Maya, she wasn't smiling. She wasn't basking in the applause. She looked afraid. The host chuckled nervously, trying to save the moment. "Maya, are you okay? You just brought the house down. What's on your mind?" She swallowed hard, finally tearing her eyes away from the back row. Her lips trembled as she glanced toward her father. He didn't move, but his eyes flicked toward the figure again and then back to her. It was a silent signal, the kind of unspoken message only someone who had lived through dangerous moments would understand. Maya nodded almost imperceptibly. She forced herself to face the audience again, though her heart was still racing. The host wrapped up the segment, thanking her, promising to reveal the judges' votes after the break. The crowd erupted in applause. One more time, the sound booming through the theater like a wave. As Maya turned to leave the stage, she risked one more glance at the back row. The figure was still there, standing perfectly still, hands at their sides, watching, waiting, and as she disappeared behind the curtain, a chilling thought struck her. That person hadn't come for the show. They had come for her. The applause faded as Maya stepped behind the heavy stage curtain. The noise from the audience dulled into a distant hum, but her heart was still racing. Her hands, which had finally steadied during her performance, were trembling again. Not from stage fright this time, from something colder. Her father was waiting just inside the shadows. He didn't say good job. He didn't even look proud. His eyes were fixed on the theater door that led to the seating area, the one where the tall, still figure had been standing. Maya's breath came out shaky. "Dad, who was that?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, his hand gently touched her shoulder, guiding her deeper into the hallway. "Behind the stage? Stay close," he murmured. His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear something in it she rarely heard. Tension. The hall was dimly lit, lined with coiled cables and stacked stage props. Crew members were busy packing equipment, but Maya felt as though every shadow in the corridor was alive. Every sound made her jump, a dropped cable, a distant door creaking, a stagehand whispering directions into a headset. Her father finally stopped near a corner where the hallway split in two directions. He turned to face her, crouching slightly, so his eyes met hers. "Maya," he said, his voice calm but firm, "do not go anywhere alone tonight. Not even for a second." Her chest tightened. She had grown up with a father who never scared easily. Wasn't just a protective parent. There was something in the way he carried himself, the way he moved, that always made her feel safe. If he was worried, something was very wrong. Before she could ask more, a faint creak echoed through the hall. Both of them turned their heads toward the sound. The stage door, the one that led to the seating area, had opened. Footsteps. Slow, measured, coming closer. Her father's hand instinctively went to his coat pocket. Not casually, deliberately. Maya's breath caught as she realized he wasn't just her calm, silent supporter. He was ready for something. The footsteps grew louder. Then, from around the corner, the tall figure appeared, still wearing the dark coat and hat, still silent, still watching. The narrow hallway felt even smaller now. Every crew member had gone quiet, sensing the tension. One of them muttered something about getting security, but the figure lifted a gloved hand, not in threat, but in a slow, deliberate gesture, and the crew member froze where they stood. Maya took a step back, pressing into her father's side. Her father didn't move, but his stance shifted. His feet planted firmly, his shoulders squared. Whatever this was, he had faced something like it before. Finally, the figure spoke. Their voice was low, deep, and smooth. Maya Williams. Hearing? Her name sent a chill up her spine. The way they said it, not like a fan, not like someone congratulating her, but like someone who had been looking for her. Her father's hand tightened on her arm. He took one step forward, his voice calm but carrying a weight Maya had never heard before. "You've been watching her long enough," he said. "Say what you came to say, then leave." The figure tilted their head slightly as if considering. Then, slowly, they reached into their coat. Maya's breath hitched. She wanted to scream to run, but her father didn't flinch. The figure pulled out a folded envelope, plain white. They extended it toward Maya. "This," the figure said softly, "is for her. No one else." Her father didn't let her move. Instead, he stepped forward, taking the envelope himself. He didn't open it. Didn't even glance inside. He just held it, his eyes never leaving the stranger's face. "Now leave," her father said quietly, but with a tone that made the air feel heavy. The figure paused for a moment, as if debating whether to say more. Then, without another word, they turned and walked back down the hall, their slow footsteps echoing against the walls. The door creaked open again and closed. They were gone. The hallway was silent. The crew members looked at one another nervously, unsure what they had just witnessed. Maya finally found her voice. "Dad, what is that? What's going on?" Father looked at the envelope in his hand for a long moment. Then, without answering, he tucked it inside his coat, placed a steady hand on her shoulder and said, "Only one thing. Not here. Not now." And as they walked down the dim corridor together, Maya realized something terrifying. Whatever was inside that envelope was about to change everything. The backstage corridor was silent as Maya followed her father through the winding halls. Every step echoed faintly off the walls, blending with the distant hum of stage equipment. She could still hear the muffled roar of the crowd out in the theater, but here, it felt like another world. Quiet, heavy, like the air itself knew something. Had changed. Her father hadn't said a word since the figure handed him the envelope. He walked with the same steady pace, his coat pulled tight, his hand still resting near the pocket where the envelope now sat. Maya's chest felt tight. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the look on his face stopped her. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was focus, the kind of focus she'd seen on him only a few times before. When things got serious, finally they stepped into a small, dimly lit room near the back exit of the theater. It was a storage space, lined with cleaning supplies and old props. But for now, it was just the two of them. Her father closed the door quietly behind them. Maya stood near the center of the room, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "Dad, who was that, and what's in the envelope? Why were they just watching me like that?" Her father didn't answer immediately. He reached into his coat, pulling out the envelope. It was plain, white, and sealed, but there was something unsettling about it. No name on the front, no stamp. Just there. He turned it over once in his hands, his brow furrowed. Then, slowly, he tore the seal and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. Maya watched as his eyes scanned the page. At first, his expression didn't change. Then, jaw tightened. His grip on the paper grew firmer. "Dad?" she asked softly. Her voice cracked slightly, fear creeping in. He didn't look up yet. He read the note again, slower this time, as if making sure every word was real. Finally, he lowered the paper and met her eyes. It's not about tonight, he said quietly. It's about you. Her stomach sank. What do you mean? He handed her the note. Her fingers shook slightly as she took it and unfolded it. The handwriting was neat, almost too neat, each letter perfectly formed. There were only 3 lines. She has the voice. She has the bloodline. She must decide by midnight. Maya's eyes darted back up to her father. What? What does that even mean? Bloodline? Decide what? By midnight. He didn't answer right away. He paced the small room, his boots heavy on the old wooden floor. Finally, he stopped and turned to her. Maya, he said, his voice low, there are things about our family I haven't told you. Things I hoped you'd never need to know. But whoever that was out there, they know. And now they know about you. Her chest tightened. She could feel her pulse in her ears. What are you talking about? What does my singing have to do with this? He stepped closer, lowering his voice even more, as if someone might be listening. You think I just wanted you to breathe and stay calm when I trained you to sing? His eyes narrowed slightly. No, Maya, I was preparing you. For this. For them. The words hit her like a weight, but before she could ask what he meant, the door to the storage room creaked. Both of them froze. Footsteps. Not rushing, not panicked. Slow, deliberate. Her father motioned for her to stay behind him as he moved. Toward the door. His hand slipped into his coat again, gripping something small, metallic. Maya's breath caught as she realized her father wasn't just some supportive parent in the shadows. He had been ready for something like this all along. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. There was a long pause, then a soft knock. Not a friendly knock. A slow, deliberate rhythm. 3 short taps, a pause, then one final knock. Her. Father's eyes hardened. He leaned close to Maya and whispered, no matter what happens, stay behind me. Before Maya could answer, the door began to creak open, and the dim hallway beyond revealed also in a dark coat, also wearing gloves. But this one was shorter, stockier, and their face covered by a black mask. The figure stepped inside the room, closing the door behind them. The tension in the air felt like it could crack. Her father straightened, his hand still in his coat pocket, his voice low but sharp. You've got 1 minute, he said. Why are you here? The masked figure tilted their head slightly, then spoke in a voice muffled by the mask. She has until midnight to choose. If she refuses, they'll come for her. Maya's breath hitched. Choose what? She demanded, her voice trembling. But the figure didn't answer her. Instead, they turned to her father. You know the rules, they said. She's of age now. She either accepts or she's no longer protected. The words hung in the air like a blade. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the figure turned, opened the door, and vanished into the hallway. The door shut with a soft click. The room was silent again. Maya looked at her father, her voice barely above a whisper. Dad, what's going on? What do they want from me? He looked at her for a long moment, and quietly he said, They don't just want your voice, Maya. They want you. The storage room felt smaller now. The dim light above flickered once, casting long, shifting shadows across the walls. Maya stood frozen in the center of the room, her hands gripping the edges of a metal chair to stop them from shaking. Her father stood near the door, still listening, still waiting, as if another knock might come at any moment. But the hallway was silent now. The masked figure was gone. Finally, her father turned to face her. His eyes, usually calm, held something heavier, a weight she had never seen before. Maya, he said quietly, I didn't want you to know this. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But they forced my hand. Ah! Maya swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry, her voice barely a whisper. Who are they? What do they want? And what? What? Does any of this have to do with me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat, pulling out the folded note again. He glanced at it once more, as though confirming something, before tucking it away and finally stepping closer to her. There's a reason I've always been strict about your training, he said. The breathing, the focus. The way I made you hold your notes, not just sing them. It wasn't only about music. Maya's brows furrowed. Then what was it about? He held her gaze. Control, he said softly. Control over what's inside you. 'Cause you're not just a singer, Maya, you're one of them. Even if you don't know it yet. Her stomach dropped. Her grip on the chair tightened. What are you talking about? One of who? Dad, you're not making any sense. He took a slow breath, as if preparing for words he'd avoided for years. Our family, he said, comes from a line of people who were chosen, not by fame, not by chance, by something much older.
Ow.
Something most people don't believe exists anymore.
Ow.
Maya stared at him, her heartbeat quickening. Chosen for what? His jaw tightened. To carry a gift and a curse. A voice. That doesn't just sing, but moves people. Literally, she blinked, confused. What do you mean moves people? It makes them feel something? That's just music. No, he interrupted, his voice firm. I mean it moves them, controls them, breaks them if it needs to. The words hit her like a shockwave. That's impossible, she stammered. But deep down she remembered. No moments in her life when her singing had done things it shouldn't have, when she was 10. She sang to calm a panicked neighbor's dog, and the animal had fallen asleep instantly. When she was 12, she sang softly to a classmate who was crying, and the entire room had gone silent. Everyone around them frozen, as if time had stopped. And tonight, on that stage, the entire theater had gone still, holding their breath, as if they were under a spell. Her voice faltered. Are you saying that's because of me? Because of us? He nodded slowly. It runs in the bloodline, generations of us. Most of us live quietly, stay hidden. But some are recruited, used, their voices become weapons. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. Is that what they want me for? Yes, he said. They've been watching you, not just tonight, but for years. Waiting for the moment your gift showed itself fully. And tonight, it did. She stepped back, shaking her head. No, I'm not. I'm not some weapon. I just wanted to sing, that's all. I didn't ask for any of this. His eyes softened slightly, but his voice stayed steady.
I know.
I tried to keep you away from it. That's why we moved so much. That's why I never let you perform publicly until now. But it's too late. They know, and now you have to decide. Her chest tightened at those words. Decide what? Join them, he said. To train with them, become one of them. Or to walk away. But if you walk away, Maya, they won't just let you go. The gift you carry is too strong. They'll either take it from you or take you. Her knees felt weak. She gripped the chair tighter just to stay upright. So, either I join some secret group of people who use their voices as weapons, or I run and they come after me? Her father nodded once. You have until midnight. That's what the note means. After that, your choice is made for you. The room felt colder. The ticking of a distant clock echoed faintly, each second sharper than the last. Maya looked at her father, her voice trembling. What? Happens if I do join them? He hesitated before answering. They'll train you, protect you. But you'll never have a normal life again. Every time you sing, it won't just be music. It'll be for them. For their purposes, whatever they are. She felt her stomach twist. And if I don't, his eyes darkened. They'll come for us. And we'll have to disappear again. But this time, it won't just be moving to another city. It'll be running, hiding, forever. The words hung heavy in the air. Maya's breathing quickened. She had just silenced an entire theater with her voice. She had just earned their respect, their awe. But now none of that mattered. She looked down at her trembling hands. And for the first time, she truly understood why her father had never clapped, never cheered, never smiled when she sang. It wasn't just stage fright he had been guarding her from. It was this. She looked up at him, her voice small but steady. What do I do, Dad? He met her eyes, his jaw tightening again. We have a few hours to decide, he said. But whatever choice we make, It's going to change everything.
Oh.
The dim storage room felt even colder now. Where in the building, a clock chimed softly. The sound echoed in Maya's chest like a warning. Her father stood by the door, his hands in his coat pockets, his eyes scanning every shadow. Maya sat on a crate near the far wall, her hands folded tightly, her thoughts spinning. She couldn't stop hearing those words in her head. She has until midnight to choose. Midnight. Faded. Most of the audience had already left the theater. The stage lights were dim now, casting long streaks of shadow across the hallways. The world outside that little room felt distant, like it belonged to another life. Maya looked up at her father. Her voice was small, almost a whisper.
Dad.
What if I don't decide? What if I just do nothing? Walk away? He shook his head slowly. That's not how they work. If you don't choose, they'll make the choice for you. Either by forcing you to join or by silencing you. Her stomach tightened. Silencing me, you mean? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The weight in his eyes said enough. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ticking of the clock was the only sound in the room. Each second felt louder than the last, counting down to something neither of them wanted to face. Then suddenly a soft knock at the door. Not like before. This one was quicker, lighter, almost nervous. Her father turned sharply, his hand instinctively going to his coat again. He stepped forward, motioning for Maya to stay back. Another knock came, followed by a voice. Maya? It's me. Please. Open up. Maya's eyes widened. She recognized the voice instantly. It was Kira, one of the other contestants from the talent show. The only one who had spoken kindly to her before she went on stage. Her father's expression didn't change. But his shoulders tensed. He opened the door cautiously. Kira stood there, clutching her phone, her wide eyes darting nervously up. Down the hallway, Maya, she whispered. We need to talk now. Maya got to her feet, her heart pounding. What's going on? Kira stepped inside quickly, glancing behind her before the door shut again. Her hands trembled as she held up her phone. On the screen was a video, shaky, grainy, recorded. From a dark alley, the footage showed the tall figure from the theater. And another group of people, all wearing the same dark coats and gloves, standing in a circle. Their faces were mostly hidden, but their voices, low and calm, carried a chilling weight. One voice said clearly, "She will sing for us, or she will not sing again." Maya's chest tightened, her hands curled into fists. Kira looked at her, her voice urgent. I don't know who these people are, Maya, but I followed that figure after the show. I thought maybe they were a scout or a talent agent, but this isn't about music. This is something else. Her father stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Did they see you? He asked sharply. Kira shook her head quickly. No, I stayed hidden, but they're not leaving. The faint ticking of the clock felt louder again, each second slicing through the heavy air. Maya's voice shook as she looked between Kira and her father. So what do we do? Run? Fight? Or do I actually join them? Her father didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor for a moment, his jaw tightening as if he were calculating something. Finally, he looked up, his voice calm but heavy. We don't run. If we run now, they'll track us. They always do. The only way out is through. Kira frowned. What does that mean? Her father turned to Maya. It means we stall. We keep them waiting. We use the time we have left before midnight to figure out their weakness. And when the time comes, we decide on our terms, not theirs.
Maya's
throat felt tight. Every second felt heavier now, every sound sharper. The choice wasn't just hers anymore, it was closing in on all of them, before anyone could speak again. The hallway outside the door went silent, no footsteps, no voices. Just silence, then faintly a sound. Music soft, low, like a single, distant note being sung by someone unseen. Kira's eyes widened. What is that? Maya froze. She recognized it instantly. It wasn't just music. It wasn't just a note. It was a call. Her father's expression darkened. "They're not waiting anymore," he said quietly. "They're calling for you." Three of them stood still, the faint note hanging in the air like a thread pulling them towards something they didn't understand. The clock ticked again, louder, closer to midnight. The faint note lingered in the air like a thread, weaving through the cracks in the old theater walls. Soft, haunting, unnatural. Maya froze. Every muscle in her body tense. The sound wasn't coming from the speakers. It wasn't coming from any instrument. It was alive. Kira clutched her phone tighter, her voice barely above a whisper. That's not normal, is it?" Maya shook her head slowly. She could feel the sound. It wasn't just in her ears. It was in her chest, her bones, vibrating faintly like a pulse. Every few seconds the note shifted, gliding upward, then downward. As though it were searching, her father's jaw tightened. "They're trying to draw her out," he said quietly. His hand moved inside his coat again, gripping something metallic, though he still hadn't shown what it was. "They're using a resonance call. Only someone like her can hear it." Maya's voice trembled. "Someone like me." He turned to her. "It's not just a song, Maya. It's a command. Right there. Trying to pull you to them without you realizing it. If you follow it, you won't come back the same." Kira's eyes darted nervously toward the door. "We can't just sit here and let them drag her out. What do we do?" Her father didn't answer right away. He tilted his head slightly, listening as if decoding the pattern of the note. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "They're not close yet, but they're moving. The sound is spreading. They want her to respond." Maya's chest tightened. "What happens if I do?" His eyes locked on hers. "You don't want to know." The note shifted again, climbing higher this time until the light above them flickered once more. Kira gasped softly, stepping back from the door.
"Oh, there."
"Not just calling, they're here." Before anyone could move, the lights in the hallway went out completely. Darkness swallowed the space outside the room. Only the dim bulb above them still flickered weakly, casting long shadows across their faces. Then, another sound. Footsteps. Slow, measured. Coming closer down the hall, her father stepped forward, positioning himself between the door and the two girls. His hand finally emerged from his coat, holding a small silver object that glinted in the flickering light. It wasn't a gun. It wasn't a knife. It looked like a tuning fork, etched with strange markings. Maya's brow furrowed. "What is that?" Her father kept his eyes on the door. "Something that can buy us time," he said quietly. "But only if they haven't sent her yet." Kira's voice shook. "Her? Who's her?" Before he could answer, the note outside shifted again. This time, it wasn't a single tone. It was a voice, a woman's voice, soft, low, singing words neither Maya nor Kira could understand. Each syllable seemed to pull at Maya's chest, like invisible hands tugging her forward. Her legs wobbled slightly. She felt herself taking a step toward the door, even though every part of her screamed not to. Kira grabbed her arm. "Maya, don't move." Her father struck the tuning fork against the wall. The metallic ring echoed through the room, sharp and piercing. The sound cut through the woman's song like a blade, and instantly, Maya felt the pull loosen. Her knees buckled as she stumbled back, gasping. Outside, the singing stopped. The hallway went silent. For a moment, there was nothing but the faint buzz of the flickering bulb. Then, slow, deliberate clap echoed from the darkness. Once, twice, 3 times. A voice followed. Female, smooth, cold. "You trained her well." "Marcus," the voice said. "But she belongs with us. You know that?" Maya froze. That voice knew her father. It knew her name. Her father's shoulders stiffened. "Not yet, Celine," he called back, his voice calm but carrying a sharp edge. "She hasn't chosen. And until she does, you have no claim." A soft chuckle came from the darkness. "She's already chosen. She just doesn't realize it yet." The air grew colder. The faint sound of footsteps moved closer, though the figure still hadn't stepped into view. Kira gripped Maya's arm tighter, whispering, "Who is that?" Her father didn't answer. Instead, he lowered the tuning fork slightly and said, "We're leaving now." Through the back exit. Don't stop. Don't look back. Maya hesitated. The voice outside Celine was soft, almost soothing despite its menace. Part of her wanted to listen, to follow. To know what this woman knew about her voice, about her bloodline. But her father's firm hand on her shoulder pulled her. Back to reality. Move, he whispered. He pushed open a side door that led to the back alley. The cold night air hit them instantly, sharp and biting. The street was nearly empty, the theater's neon sign flickering weakly above them. But as they stepped into the alley, a figure was already waiting there. Not Celine. Someone else. Someone Maya had seen before, but couldn't place where. The figure stepped forward slowly, raising a hand in a gesture of calm. I can get you out, they said softly. But only if you trust me. Maya's heart pounded as she stared at the stranger's face. She knew them from somewhere, not from the theater, not from tonight, but from a memory buried deep. One she hadn't thought about in years, and as the ticking clock in her head reminded her how close midnight was, she realized this stranger might be the only one who could change everything. The alley was cold and narrow, the brick walls on either side closing in like a tunnel. Maya stood frozen, her breath coming out in small clouds. Kira stayed close beside her, clutching her arm, while her father stood slightly in front, his hand still wrapped around the strange silver tuning fork. The stranger took a step forward, tall, dressed in dark clothes, but not like the others. No gloves, no mask. Their face was visible, sharp, calm, and strangely familiar. Maya squinted through the dim light. She knew this person. Not from tonight, not from the show. From somewhere. Long ago, the stranger's voice was low, careful, as they lifted their hand in a calming gesture. Marcus. It's been a long time. Her father's shoulders tensed. He didn't lower the tuning fork. I thought you were gone, he said, coldly or dead. The stranger gave a faint smile, almost, but I came back. For her. Maya's stomach tightened. She felt Kira's grip tighten too. Her father stepped slightly closer to the stranger, his stance firm. If you're here for her, he said, you're wasting your time. She's not yours. She's not theirs. Either. The stranger tilted their head. She doesn't belong to me, Marcus. But if Celine reaches her before midnight, she'll never be free again. You know how this works. Can't run from the bloodline forever. Maya's voice broke through, shaky and small. Who are you? Do I know you? The stranger finally turned their gaze fully on her. Their eyes softened, just slightly. You do, though, you don't remember. I knew your mother. The words hit like a wave. Ah's breath caught. Her mother, the woman she barely remembered, who had died when Maya was just 5. Her father never spoke much about her. It's almost as if talking about her was dangerous. The stranger stepped a little closer, ignoring the way Marcus tensed. Your mother was like you, Maya. Her voice could shake a room, calm a crowd, or destroy it. But unlike most of us, she didn't want to be used. She ran. She hid, and when she had you, she swore you'd never be pulled into this world. Maya's eyes burned. She felt a lump in her throat. Ah, my mother. She had this too, this voice. The stranger nodded. She was one of the strongest I've ever met. Stronger than Celine. Stronger than Marcus even. Her father's jaw tightened at that, but he didn't interrupt. The stranger took another slow step forward. And when she died, the bloodline marked you. They knew your gift would awaken one day. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, as if to hold in the weight of what she was hearing. So what happens if they get me? What do they do? The stranger's expression darkened. They train you, break you down, make you use your voice. The way they choose to influence, to command, even to destroy. You'll be powerful, but you'll never be yourself again. Kira stepped forward, her voice shaking. Then what's the other choice? Run, keep hiding. That doesn't sound much better. Stranger looked at her, then back to Maya. There's another way. A way to break the bloodline's claim, but it comes with a cost. Maya's heart thudded in her chest. What cost? Before the stranger could answer, the faint note returned. The one from earlier. but this time it was louder, closer. The air itself seemed to hum, vibrating softly. From the far end of the alley, a shadow moved, not walking, gliding as though the air carried it. Selene, her voice floated ahead of her, smooth and chilling, each word slipping. Through the alley like smoke, Maya, time is running out. Your voice was born for us. Every second you delay, the harder it will be to fight what's already inside you. Her father stepped in front of Maya and Kira, raising the tuning fork again. The stranger didn't move, but their hand shifted to something beneath their coat, a slim, metallic object Maya couldn't see clearly. Selene stopped halfway down the alley, her face still hidden beneath the shadow of her hood, but her voice carried clearly. Marcus, you can't hold her forever. Midnight is coming when the clock strikes. She chooses. Or we choose for her. The note beneath her words grew deeper, a low hum that made the brick walls seem to tremble. Maya felt it in her chest again. The pull, the invisible strings tugging her forward. Her knees buckled slightly. Kira grabbed her arm to steady her, but even Kira winced at the sound now, as if it were clawing into her bones. The stranger took a step closer to Maya, leaning in just enough for only her to hear. There's one thing they fear, Maya. The same thing your mother used before she died? But if you use it, you might lose your voice forever. Her eyes widened. Lose. My voice. He nodded once. It's the only way to break their hold. To end the bloodline's claim on you. You'll have to decide fast, because when that clock strikes midnight, there won't be a third option. The hum deepened again, shaking loose dust from the bricks above. Selene's voice rose, almost like a lullaby now. Come to me, sing, and you'll never have to fear again. Maya's heart pounded. Her breath came faster. Every second felt heavier than the last. Behind Selene, more shadows were gathering. Figures in dark coats and gloves, watching, waiting. The stranger's hand brushed against hers. You want to be free? Truly free? Then when I tell you, sing. But not the way you just did on that stage. Sing the note. The one your mother taught you in her last lullaby. Maya's breath hitched. That lullaby, the one she barely remembered, the one she thought was just a childhood memory. But as Selena's voice pulled at her, and the clock somewhere in the distance began to toll the first note of midnight's chime, the memory of that song came flooding back. The alley was shaking now, not from footsteps, not from wind, from the hum, that low, growing vibration beneath Selene's voice. Maya's ears rang. Her chest felt tight, like invisible strings were pulling her forward with every note Selene sang. Each word from that smooth, cold voice slid into her head like it belonged there. Come to me, Maya, Selene whispered, her tone sweet but heavy, like honey laced with poison. Sing, and you'll never have to hide again. The figures behind Selene stood perfectly still, lined up in the shadows, their faces hidden, their gloved hands folded in silence. The humming beneath her words deepened. The air itself felt heavier, like it was alive and pushing Maya toward her. Kira clutched Maya's arm, her knuckles white. Maya, don't listen. She cried, though even her voice sounded weak under the hum. I can't, Maya gasped, her feet sliding forward, her body moving as though it wasn't her own. Her father stepped in front of her, the silver tuning fork raised again. He slammed it against the brick wall, and its sharp metallic ring cut through the hum like lightning. For a moment, the pull loosened. Maya stumbled back, gasping for air, her knees weak. Selene's voice didn't falter. Instead, it shifted. Softer now, but deeper, as if sinking beneath the tuning fork's pitch. The hum rose again, louder, stronger. The bricks above rattled. The tuning fork's sound was being drowned out. The stranger stepped closer to Maya, his hand gripping her shoulder to steady her. Maya, listen to me. The tuning fork won't hold them much longer. There's only one way now. You remember your mother's lullaby? Her eyes shot to his. The memory burned at the edge of her mind, her mother's soft voice rocking her to sleep. The melody she thought was just comfort. Now it came back sharper, every note glowing like a hidden code in her memory. I think so. She whispered. The stranger nodded. that wasn't just a lullaby. It was the seal, the one thing they fear. But if you sing it fully, your voice will burn out. Forever. Her chest tightened. No voice. Ever. He met her eyes. It's the price your mother paid to protect you when she died. She used it, and it cost her everything. What's your choice? The clock struck again in the distance, the second chime of midnight. Each strike echoed like a countdown. Celine's voice grew louder, almost echoing over the chime. You can't fight it, Maya. You are us. The voice you have. It belongs. Here, with me. Kira shook her head, tears in her eyes. Don't listen to her. You don't need them to be great. Maya's heart pounded. She could feel the lullaby rising in her throat, faint and shaky, but there. The melody her mother once sang began forming in her mind, each note glowing like a path. She took a deep breath, but her father grabbed her arm. Maya, he said. Firmly, his voice steady, despite the chaos. If you do this, you'll never sing again. Not a song, not a word. Are you ready to live with that? Her eyes burned. Her whole life, her voice had been her escape, her dream, the only thing that made her feel seen. But if she didn't use the lullaby, Celine would take her. She'd sing forever. But never for herself. The clock struck again, the third chime of midnight. Each sound felt heavier now, rattling through the alley like a drumbeat of doom. The shadows behind Celine began to move closer, slow and deliberate, like hunters closing in. Maya clenched her fists, her legs trembling. Her gaze locked on Celine, whose hooded figure now stood only a few yards away. The hum grew so loud it made the air ripple. Then Maya took a single step forward. Kira grabbed her arm in panic, but Maya gently pulled free. Her voice was soft, steady. If this is the only way, then I'm ending this tonight. Her father's jaw tightened, but he gave a small nod. The stranger stepped closer, whispering, Start on the low note. Hold it. Let it build. When the last chime strikes, release it all. Maya closed her eyes. The lullaby rose inside her, the way her mother used to hum it against her ear. Her chest filled with the memory, her throat trembling as she let the first note slip out. It was soft at first, a whisper of a sound. But even soft, it cut through the hum like a blade. Selena's voice faltered for the first time. Psst. The shadows behind her froze mid-step. The clock struck the fourth chime. Maya's voice grew stronger, each note rising, shimmering through the air like a current. The figures in the alley shifted uncomfortably. The humming beneath Selena's song began to crack, like glass under pressure. Selena's voice rose, desperate now. Maya, stop. You don't know what you're doing? That song will destroy you. The fifth chime struck. Maya ignored her, holding the next note longer, louder. Her throat burned, every breath sharp, but she didn't stop. She felt something deep in her chest, like a flame, hot and bright, spreading with every sound. The sixth chime rang. Celine staggered back a step, her hood slipping to reveal her face, sharp, pale, and angry. The shadows behind her began to dissolve into the air, breaking apart like smoke. Maya's legs shook violently, her vision blurring, but she forced the lullaby higher, the final notes building toward the peak. Her throat felt like it might tear, but the melody kept climbing. The seventh chime echoed. Celine screamed a sharp, inhuman sound as cracks of light split through the dark figures around her. The humming shattered completely, replaced by the sound of rushing air as the alley began to still. The final eighth chime of midnight struck. Maya opened her mouth and released the last note, high, pure, and blazing. The sound tore through the alley like a shockwave, a burst of light and force that knocked Celine and her shadows back into the darkness. And then, silence. The air stilled. The shadows were gone. Selena's voice had vanished. Only the faint echo of Maya's final note lingered, fading into the cold night. Maya collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her throat burned raw. She tried to speak. Her father knelt beside her, placing a hand on her back. His expression was heavy, but proud. "You did it," he said softly. "They can't touch you now. You're free." Maya nodded weakly, though tears slid down her cheeks. Free, but voiceless. Her dream, her music, her escape, gone forever. Kira knelt on her other side, hugging her tightly. "We'll figure this out, Maya. Even if you can't sing, we'll find another way." The stranger stood a few feet away, watching, quietly. When Maya looked up at him, he gave a small nod. "Your mother would be proud," he said softly. Then, without another word, he turned and vanished into the shadows of the street. The alley was silent now. Only the faint glow of the theater sign flickering in the distance remained. And as Maya stood, leaning on Kira and her father, she felt the weight of what she'd lost, and what she'd saved herself from. The alley was still. The flickering glow of the theater sign barely lit the cracked pavement. The shadows that had filled the air only moments ago were gone, dissolved like smoke, but so was Maya's voice. She sat on the cold ground, leaning against her father as Kira held her hand. Tightly. Her throat burned as if she'd swallowed fire. Every time she'd tried to make a sound, even just a whisper, nothing came out. Not a word. Not a note. Her father's hand rested gently on her shoulder. "She did it," he murmured, his voice soft but steady. "She broke their hold. They can't claim her now." Kira glanced at him, tears in her eyes. "But she can't sing. Ever again, can she?" He shook his head slowly. "No. That note. The seal wasn't meant to be sung by someone so young. It burns the voice away. That's the price her mother paid, too." Atch. Maya closed her eyes, her chest tight. Her music, the one thing that made her feel alive, the one thing she thought could give her a future, was gone. The theater, the stage, the dream she had chased, all of it felt like another lifetime now. But deep down there was a strange calm. For the first time since the show ended, there was no pull, no hum, no invisible strings tugging at her chest. The quiet was heavy, but it was freedom. The three of them rose slowly, their footsteps echoing softly as they left the alley behind. The theater loomed in the distance, its neon signs still blinking, but its magic and its danger felt far away now. Kira stayed close to Maya, her arm around her shoulders. "You'll find another way," she whispered. "Music isn't just singing. Maybe you'll write. Maybe you'll teach. You still have music, Maya. You just can't give it a voice." Maya nodded faintly. A tear slid down her cheek. But she managed a small smile for her friend. Her father walked silently beside them, his face unreadable. When they reached the quiet street beyond the alley, he finally spoke. "They'll never stop existing, Maya. People like Celine, they'll always look for those like us. But you're not their weapon now. You're free to live. However you choose." Maya looked up at him, her eyes asking the question her voice couldn't. He gave a faint, reassuring smile. "Yes, we can stop running. For the first time, we can stay in one place." The words brought a warmth she didn't expect. For years, her life had been filled with moving boxes, new cities, and constant fear of the unknown. Now, even without her voice, she finally had something steady. The stranger from the alley never returned. No one saw him again after he slipped into the shadows. But his words lingered in Maya's mind. Your mother would be proud. The next morning, Maya stood at her window, watching the sun rise over the quiet street. The events of the night felt distant, almost like a dream, but the raw ache in her throat reminded her it was real. When Kira arrived to check on her, Maya wrote 2 words on a notepad and held them up with a soft smile. "Thank you." Kira hugged her tightly. "You don't need a voice to tell me that, Maya," she said gently. "Besides, we're going. To make sure people still hear you, even if it's not through singing." Days turned into weeks. The whispers about the girl who had silenced a theater spread online, but Maya stayed quiet, far from the attention. The world would never know what really happened that night, or why her voice had disappeared. And that was fine. The fewer people who knew about the bloodline, the safer she was. On the first night she dared to sit at her piano again, Maya placed her hands gently on the keys. She couldn't sing the melodies anymore, but her fingers moved softly, coaxing the music out of the instrument. Each note carried her emotions, her story, her freedom. Her father leaned in the doorway, watching quietly. When she glanced back at him, he simply nodded, a quiet sign of approval. For the first time in years, his expression wasn't heavy. With fear, and as the soft piano filled the small house, Maya realized something. Her voice might be gone, but her music wasn't. It would live on through her hands, through her heart, through the people who stayed by her side, far away. In some dark corner of the city, Selena's voice still lingered faintly, plotting, waiting. But for now, Maya was safe. She was